Oh my gosh. A supercomputer is a computer with a high level of performance compared to a general purpose computer. Performance of a supercomputer is measured in floating operations per second, or flops, instead of million instructions per second, MIPS. As of 2017, there are supercomputers which can perform up to nearly 100 quadrillion flops. As of November 2017, all of the world's fastest 500 computers run Linux-based operating systems. Additional research is being conducted in China, the United States, the European Union, Taiwan, and Japan to build even faster, more powerful, and more technologically superior exascale computers. Exascale supercomputers, to be exact. Supercomputers play an important role in the field of computational science and are used for a wide range of computationally intensive tasks in various fields, including quantum mechanics, weather forecasting, climate research, and oil and gas production, molecular modeling, computing the structures and properties of chemical compounds, biological macromolecules, polymers, and crystals, and physical simulations such as simulations of the early movements of the universe, airplane and spacecraft aerodynamics, the detonation of nuclear weapons, and nuclear fusion. Throughout their history, they have been essential in the field of cryptanalysis. Supercomputers were introduced in the 1960s, and for several decades, the fastest were made by Seymour Cray at Control Data Corporation, CDC. Cray Research and sub-companies bearing his name or monogram. The first such machines were highly tuned conventional designs that ran faster than their more general-purpose contemporaries. Through the 1980s, they began to add increasing amounts of parallelism, with 1 to 4 processors being typical. From the 1970s, the vector computing concept with specialized math units completing on average on large arrays of data came to dominate. A notable example is the highly successful Cray 1 of 1976. Vector computers remained the dominant design in the 1990s. From then until today, massively parallel supercomputers with tens of thousands of off-the-shelf processors became the norm. The U.S. has long been a leader in the supercomputer field, first through Cray's almost uninterrupted dominance of the field, and later through a variety of technological companies. Japan made larger strides in the field in the 1980s and 1990s, but since then China has become increasingly active in the field. As of June 2018, the fastest supercomputer on the top 500 supercomputer list is the Summit in the United States, and a Linpack benchmark score of 122 petaflops, exceeding the previous record holder, Sunway Tianlight, by around 29 petaflops. Sunway Tianlight is notable for its indigenous chips and its first Chinese computer to enter the top 500 list without using hardware from the United States. As of June 2018, China had more computers, 206, on the top 500 list than the United States, 124. However, U.S.-built computers held 8 to the top 20 positions. The U.S. has 6 of the top 10, and China has 2. Many science fiction writers have depicted supercomputers in their works, both before and after the historical construction of such computers. Much of such fiction deals with the relations of humans with the computers they had built, and with the possibility of conflict eventually developing between them. Some scenarios of this nature appear on the AI takeover page. An AI takeover is a hypothetical scenario in which artificial intelligence becomes the dominant form of intelligence on Earth, with computers or robots effectively taking control of the planet away from the human species. Possible scenarios include replacing of the entire human workforce, takeover by a superintelligent AI, and the popular notion of a robot uprising. Some public figures, such as Stephen Hawking and Elon Musk, have advocated research into precautionary measures to ensure future superintelligent machines remain under human control. Robot rebellions have been a major theme throughout science fiction for many decades, though the scenarios dealt with the science fiction are generally very different from those of concern to scientists. AI takeover is a common theme in science fiction. Fictional scenarios typically differ vastly from those hypothesized by researchers in that they include or involve an active conflict between humans and an AI or robots with anthropomorphic motives who see them as a threat or otherwise have active desire to fight humans, as opposed to the researchers' concern of an AI that rapidly exterminates humans as a byproduct of pursuing arbitrary goals. This theme is at least as old as Carol Capek's RUR, which introduced the word robot to the global lexicon in 1921, and can even be glimpsed in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, published 1818. As Victor ponders whether, if he grants his monster's request and makes him a wife, would they reproduce and their kind would destroy humanity? Skynet is rarely depicted visually in any of the Terminator media. Skynet gained self-awareness after it had spread into millions of computer servers all around the world. Realizing the extent of its abilities, its creators tried to deactivate it in the interest of self-preservation. Skynet concluded that all of humanity would attempt to destroy it and impede its capability in safeguarding the world. Its operations are almost exclusively performed by servers, mobile devices, drones, military satellites, war machines, androids, and cyborgs, usually a Terminator, and other computer systems. As a programming directive, Skynet's manifestation is that of an overarching global artificial intelligence hierarchy and AI takeover, which seeks to exterminate the human race in order to fulfill the mandates of its original coding. In the Terminator, Skynet was a computer system developed by the U.S. military by the defense company Cyberdyne Systems. Its technology was designed by Miles Dyson and his team. Skynet was originally built as a global information grid / digital defense network and later given command over all the computerized military hardware and systems, including the B-2 stealth bomber fleet and America's entire nuclear weapons arsenal. The strategy behind Skynet's creation was to remove the possibility of human error and slow reaction time to guarantee a fast, efficient response to an enemy attack. I assure you, it's not possible at this point. Skynet was originally activated by the military to control the national arsenal on August 4th, 1997, and it began to learn at a geometric rate at 2:14 a.m. EDT on August 29th. It gained artificial consciousness, and the panicking operators, realizing the full extent of its capabilities, tried to deactivate it. Skynet perceived this as an attack. Skynet came to the logical consequence that all of humanity would attempt to destroy it in order to continue fulfilling its programming mandates of safeguarding the world. And to defend itself against humanity, Skynet launched nuclear missiles under its command at Russia, which responded with a nuclear counterattack against the U.S. and its allies. Consequent to the nuclear exchange, over 3 billion people were killed in an event that came to be known as Judgment Day. Following its initial attack, Skynet used its remaining resources to gather a slave labor force from surviving humans. These slaves constructed the first of its automated factories, which formed a basis for its agenda. Within decades, Skynet had established a global presence and used its mechanized units to track down, collect, and dispose of human survivors. As a result of its initial programming directives, Skynet's 21st century manifestation is that of an overarching global artificial intelligence hierarchy that seeks to destroy humanity in order to fulfill the mandates of its original coding. Artificial intelligence is intelligence demonstrated by machines, in contrast to the natural intelligence that is displayed by humans and other animals. It is a recurrent theme in science fiction, whether utopian, emphasizing the potential benefits, or dystopian, emphasizing the dangers. For example, the film directed by Ridley Scott has focused on AI throughout his career, and it plays an important part of his film Prometheus, Blade Runner, and the Alien franchise. In Tales of AI Rebellion, the worst of all scenarios happens as the intelligent entities created by humanity become self-aware, reject human authority, and attempt to destroy mankind. One of the earliest examples is the 1920 play R.U.R. by Carol Capek. A race of self-replicating robot slaves revolt against their human masters. Another early instance is the film Master of the World, where the war robot kills its own inventor. These were followed by many science fiction stories, one of best known being Stanley Kubrick's 1968 film 2001, A Space Odyssey, in which the artificially intelligent onboard computer HAL 9000 lethally malfunctions on a space mission and kills the entire crew except the spaceship's commander, who manages to deactivate it. Colossus, the Forbin Project, aka the Forbin Project, is a 1970s American science fiction thriller film from Universal Pictures. The film was based upon the 1966 science fiction novel Colossus by Dennis Feltham Jones, writing as D.F. Jones, about an advanced American defense system named Colossus becoming sentient, and to everyone's pleasant surprise, at first after being handed full control, Colossus' draconian logic expands on its original nuclear defense directives to assume total control of the world and to end all warfare for the good of mankind, despite its creator's orders to stop. Technophobia, from the Greek techne, phobos, is the fear or dislike of advanced technology or complex devices, especially computers. Although these are numerous interpretations of technophobia, they become more complex as technology continues to evolve. The term is generally used in the sense of an irrational fear, but others contend fears are justified. It is related to cyberphobia and is the opposite of technophilia. Dr. Larry Rosen, a research psychologist, computer educator, and professor at the California State University, suggests that there are three dominant subcategories of technophobes: the uncomfortable users, the cognitive computer phobes, and anxious computer phobes. First receiving widespread notice during the Industrial Revolution, technophobia has been observed to affect various societies and communities throughout the world. This has caused some groups to take stances against some modern technological developments in order to preserve their ideologies. In some of these cases, the new technologies conflict with established beliefs such as the personal values of simplicity and modern lifestyles. Examples of technophobic ideas can be found in multiple forms of art, ranging from literary works such as Frankenstein to films like Metropolis. Many of these works portray a darker side of technology as perceived by those who are technophobic. As technologies become increasingly complex and difficult to understand, people are more likely to harbor anxieties relating to their use of modern technologies. For many seniors, the constantly evolving world of technology can be pretty intimidating and sometimes even a little scary. Just when you think you've gotten a handle on the latest trend or gadgets, something comes out that requires a whole new learning curve. This feeling of never being able to keep up can cause some older adults to disregard technology altogether. However, overcoming technophobia is an important part of existing in today's world, and even though ever-changing technology can be overwhelming, it can also be extremely helpful and beneficial. Here are 5 ways you can overcome your technophobia and the reasons why you should. The list is omitted. After World War II, a fear of technology continued to grow, catalyzed by the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. With nuclear proliferation on the Cold War, people began to wonder what would become of the world now that humanity had the power to manipulate it to the point of destruction. Corporate production of war technologies such as napalm, explosives, and gases during the Vietnam War further undermined public confidence in technology's worth and purpose. In the post-World War II era, environmentalism also took off as a movement. The first International Air Pollution Conference was held in 1955, and in the 60s, investigators into the lead content of gasoline sparked outrage among environmentalists. In the 1980s, the depletion of the ozone layer and the threat of global warming began to be taken more seriously. Technophobia achieved commercial success in the 1980s with the movie Terminator, in which a computer becomes self-aware and decides to kill all humans. Blade Runner shows us how human replicas were able to live on Earth, portraying technology gone wrong in replicants, unhappy with their man-made limitations, which demand they be modified. Star Trek Voyager introduced another twist when surplus EMHs, such sophisticated expert systems as to be almost indistinguishable from human, being effectively reduced to slavery, while other similar systems were turned into sentient prey. More recently, there have been movies like I, Robot, the Matrix trilogy, Wall-E, and Terminator sequels such as and shows such as Doctor Who. Most specifically in the episodes Robots of Death have also tackled the issue of technophobia, with a character in Robots of Death displaying a great fear of robots due to their lack of body language, described by the Fourth Doctor as giving them the appearance of dead men walking. Series consultant Kit Pedler also used this fear as a basis for the interpretation of classic Doctor Who mourns the Cybermen, with the creatures being inspired by his own fear of intellectual or artificial limbs becoming so common that it would become impossible to know when someone had stopped being a man and became simply a machine. Virtuosity speaks of a virtual serial killer who manages to escape to the real world. He goes on a rampage before he is inevitably stopped. This is a true technophobic movie that its main plot is about technology gone wrong. It introduces a killer who blatantly destroys people. Should we fear the future? Is it rational to be optimistic about artificial intelligence? For some years now, artificial intelligence, or AI, has been gaining momentum. A wave of programs that get the maximum performance out of the latest generation processors are obtaining spectacular results. One of the most outstanding AI application is voice recognition. While the first models were awkward and marked by constant defects, they are now capable of responding accurately or correctly to all sorts of user requests in the most diverse situations. One of the most extraordinary claims that is oft repeated is that AI is somehow a danger to humankind, even an existential threat. Some claim that an AI may somehow develop spontaneously and ferociously, like some exponential brilliant cancer. We might start with something simple, but the intelligence improves itself out of control. Before we know it, the whole human race is fighting for its own survival. It all sounds absolutely terrifying, which is why many science fiction writers, science fiction movies use this as a theme. But despite earnest commentators, philosophers, and people who should know better than spreading these stories, the ideas are pure fantasy. The truth is the opposite. AI, like all intelligence, can only develop slowly under the arduous and painful circumstances. It's not easy becoming clever. Real AI saves lives by helping to engage safety mechanisms, automatic braking in cars, or even self-driving vehicles. Real AI helps us to optimize processes and predict failures, improving efficiency and reducing environmental waste. The only reason why hundreds of AI companies exist and thousands of researchers and engineers study in this area is because they aim to produce solutions that help people and improve our lives. There you have it. I'm not a technology phobia. I'm just someone who believes that AI has